In the center of Tau Ceti, in the heart of Diamarsh, lay the devastated UESC constructions and equipment destroyed by a mysterious, terrifying force of energy that seems to defy the laws of nature. Codenamed just the Anomaly, this weird alien energy would be studied endlessly and secretly by the UESC, with none of their findings being made public, and on top of that, the things they did find terrified them to their very core, driving a lot of them mad, as almost all of the colonists in the nearby area experienced the terrifying effects of it and the nightmares it caused. Thanks to the corporation of Traxus Off-World Industries, we now know some of the secret information put out there by the UESC as to what this anomaly is or was, and what the specific nightmare symptoms were as well. This is the Traxus Investigation, uncovering the secrets of the anomaly and the terrifying nightmares that plagued the colonists of Tau Ceti 4 and eventually drove them completely insane. To start our story, we must look into the people responsible for this whole investigation, and that is Traxus Off-World Industries. Like with New Cal, Traxus came to prominence during the 2360s due to humanity's horrific plague that wiped out many of their vital crops, causing massive food riots all over Earth and Mars. Jumping to humanity's aid, Traxus and New Cal were massively praised and were deemed corporations looking out for humanity's best interests. Thanks to that, both of them were brought into the Marathon expedition, with Traxus being responsible for the construction process of the Marathon ship. This was due to their corporation being the leading space mining megacorp in all of the Sol system, as well as the leading corporation in the technology industry. In 2408 was when Traxus, together with the UESC, laid down the first whole segments of the USC Marathon, and what was just a dream project just a few years ago was now becoming a reality. Constructing the ship across 2 planets, albeit avoiding all of the controversies and riots caused by those who deemed utilizing the moon of Deimos as stealing it and going against humanity's best interests, Traxus would bring with them tons of raw materials as well as a massive workforce with all of their engineering skills to make sure the construction went according to plan and was made to the highest of standards. 64 years later, not 69 like I said in my New Cal video, not nice, Marathon was finally built, but it wasn't an easy process, especially when it came to the relationship between the UASC and Traxus, shown within their formal negotiations found within the proprietary assets found on Tau Ceti's surface. In this document, a member of Traxus and the UESC are debating the ownership of the Marathon itself, with the Traxus individual stating that Traxus are the only ones capable of this whole construction because of how big they are, and that the UESC needs them because of the Mida faction down on Mars stopping the materials getting through. The Traxus individual seems adamant that without Traxus, Marathon would not ever be made because the UESC simply isn't good enough. But the UESC official hits back on that claim, stating that they know how to function and have already got spies on the inside at Mida to make sure they stay ahead of them at all times, and that costs a fortune in itself. Ultimately, this gives us a brief insight into who Traxus are and who they think they are. They are incredibly arrogant and believe that they can do anything they want simply because they are the biggest mega corporation and have unlimited funds to do so. Regardless, formal negotiations must have gone ahead eventually, and with that, the Marathon was finally launched into the stars after all of the corporations involved agreed that Tau Ceti 4 was the planet for them. It is unknown how many Traxus employees or officials travelled with this expedition, however, considering how much they played a part in the engineering of the ship, I'd imagine a good few ventured with them in case of any problems. However, as we all know, arriving at Tau Ceti was just the start of many problems, as first came the attack from the Four, which halted all of the colony's progress, and then came the contagion and the other events that wiped out the colony. For Traxus, all information of what had happened in this part of the system died out, but they knew 100% that they had the right to go and explore what had happened and reacquire all of the assets they had poured into the expedition, such as weapons, vehicles, construction equipment, and even data. Sending their AI of Vulcan to the system, they would start to see what had actually happened down on Tau Ceti and uncover this mysterious force of the Anomaly, which Traxus became became extremely intrigued by, but not for the same reasons as the colonists. Instead, they wanted to turn it into profit for the corporation. But with that little bit about Traxus out of the way, let us dive into the story of what they found about the anomaly and what was uncovered by the corporation of Traxus. When the Four attacked in 2794 and quickly lost to humanity, it was said that after the Marine left with Durandal to the planet of Luan, the Four returned and destroyed all of the colony down below, including the other cyborgs placed down there. That said, it is unsure now how accurate that piece of information actually was, because quite clearly the colony carried on down below, but not without its problems. That said, it is believed that it was in 2812 when the contagion first displayed itself to the colonists, but according to a report made by H. Lawson in the present day regarding the anomaly, it appeared first sometime after the attack on the colony, most likely talking about the Four's return attack after their initial attack on the Marathon. At first, this anomaly was quite small, it was said, and could easily be contained and monitored, even if it had caught some UESC scientists off guard at first. However, as the years went on, the anomaly grew more and more in size, becoming far more of a problem to the colonists within Diamarsh, and anyone that got caught out by it would die in an absolutely horrific way. What caused this anomaly is completely unknown, but clearly the UESC or whoever made the official documents know it is linked to something or someone, because they have completely redacted all information regarding it. That said, a lot of other redacted pieces of information seem to link extremely closely to the alien beings of the Sifit, who were enslaved, highly intelligent beings that were first used to fight the Four, but were now free from their captors and were used quite a lot for Durandal's universal goals. However, that link to the anomaly to the Sifit, if that is what redacted is, according to this present day report, remains unconfirmed still. On the side, before the contagion spread, the colonists were said to have integrated into their new home pretty well. However, there was one noticeable thing that the high chain of command noticed that seemed to affect a few colonists when they first came out of cryo. This was claimed as being reintegration problems due to awakening and the cryo fog. According to General Reed in his personal logs, the first wave of colonists that were awoken show massive signs of aggression due to how long they had been asleep for. At least that was the theory anyway. But as more got awoken, that aggression started to lessen thanks to more training in their scientists. But it never really ended, leading to more heavy-handed form of handling by the UESC and General Reed's team.
And on security's end, it was easier to recognize and separate cryofog from aggression. We trained for potential chaotic reactions in individuals and groups after prolonged sleep. But training is theory, not reality, so there were a few incidents. My team was efficient in handling the outliers, but seeing security personnel use even minimal corrective force to subdue your neighbor or family is jarring on a clear day. More so when marginally lucid.
Maybe this was due to the natural process of being awoken 300 years later, and the body has to try and remember who it is, what it's doing, and where they are. Or maybe it was due to a dark, lingering force underneath the planet, affecting the mental state of these newly emerging colonists, especially as a lot of these symptoms show later in their story. As the anomaly grew more and more, a lot more of the UESC equipment and roads would become untouchable, with it eventually forming as a ground fissure that burst through the ground, sending tons of weird alien energy into the air, as well as all of the UESC equipment and anyone else in the nearby area. Noticing this, a new Cascadia Council meeting would take place, including 3 members, President Luca Caruso, Dr. Valentine Cole, and General Davik Reed. But in this meeting, unfortunately, the anomaly is not considered a priority by President Caruso, as his focus is more specifically on the contagion affecting the colonists.
I've got people dying from a contagion we can't identify.
I have a theory that this is linked to the contagion, along with several other abnormal phenomena, some of which might even be beneficial if we can understand and harness the source. There are too many angles here to just ignore it.
I'm tired of chasing theories. I've heard a lot of them, and they're all pretty goddamn thin. We need to prioritize here. General Reed and I agree our focus is containing the contagion.
With no help from the council, the anomaly was monitored, but not really a priority. As the days went on, however, another mysterious activity started to take place around it, where all of a sudden, a mysterious fog would surround the area and become extremely hard to see anything going on. As the fog started to turn up, voices could be heard calling to those within the area to join them or follow them. These would go on to be labelled as mimics and would at first be seen as actual people that were calling out for help. But as more and more people went missing, it was becoming clear to those that were on patrol that they were not to be listened to, and if a mimic was encountered, they had to just ignore it. But unfortunately, it was still early days, and that information wasn't out there as of yet for the general public. On top of that, some of the soldiers who were on night patrol were telling of stories that people were just showing up at the Anomaly, and when questioned as to why they were in the area, the person would answer in one of two ways. The first one being that they had no idea where they were or how they got there, but the second one was that they were looking for their deceased relatives. Regardless of why they were there, the soldiers always turned them away, but it was bringing a lot more attention to Reed and the rest of the colony that something weird was going on, and the Anomaly was playing with their minds. As time went on, more and more colonists started to claim they were having frequent nightmares every single night. This wasn't seen as that odd at first, until the subject of what those nightmares were about was made apparent. According to Dr. Mari Hassan, people all over the colony had been reporting the exact same type of dream or nightmare. It was becoming so bad that finally Caruso stepped in and told her to investigate more into it and what its specifics were. At first, Dr. Hassan would not really see the importance of this investigation. Ultimately, everyone had been transported halfway across the galaxy and been placed into sleep for 300 years. They had left behind loved ones, their friends, their responsibilities for a brand new life in a new part of the universe. In her eyes, it was a form of guilt caused by their subconscious, and it was nothing more than that. Even claiming that when humanity moved to Mars, there was a 36% increase in religious affiliation. Maybe it was just a relocation psychological situation, and it was just the guilt of leaving people behind that was plaguing them. Even General Reed showed signs of this same nightmare, and even kept all of his logs open as a way of speaking out loud to his now deceased wife named Orla. After talking more about his mission on Tau Ceti, finally bringing a lockdown onto the whole of Diamarsh to contain the contagion, Reed is seen to take a dive in his own mental health. Whilst describing his next mission, allowing Cole to finally be able to analyse the anomaly more, and that the UESC had completely destroyed their mission as a whole because of their terrible leadership, he is visited by a mysterious being, or a vision, that he believes is Orla. This was at first anyway, until finally he comes to his senses and realises she couldn't possibly be here, as she had died back when they lived on Mars centuries ago now.
I wish I could talk to you. Really talk to you, not like this. The real you. I'm going to overrule Caruso. Send Cole back in. He wants to go, anyway, and... Orla? That's not really you. Orla.
In a later journal entry, or earlier one, it is hard to say, Reed also says to Orla that he's seen monsters.
Oh, you can't hear me, you can't. But babe, we planned for your bad days, planned for the worst. But maybe we didn't. Maybe, probably we couldn't. Not for this. Not for... Baby. I've seen monsters. We're all monsters.
With Reed claiming he was having these regular nightmares, Dr. Hassan had to take action and brought him in, and he volunteered as well, to be a patient to analyse under Caruso's orders. Dr. Hassan was worried that Reed was having dreams because he was not someone to really seek out therapy, and as she says in her personal log,
"Maybe I should be worried. General Reed himself came to me to say he was having strange dreams. And if even he's willing to consider therapy, well, then something must be really wrong. I'll talk to him myself. I'm worried about him. And I'll get Joy going on wellness checks. It's a risk. We're still getting her calibrated. But we need the help."
As stated in her log, it was time to get the colony's AI involved because this was happening more and more, and there were too many colonies having nightmares for just Hassan to focus on. As Hassan explored Reed's mind, Joy was exploring some of the other colonists and also showed to her that some terrifying things were taking place as multiple people were displaying similar nightmares, all involving their dead relatives, even ones they had witnessed mere days ago.
It's my mum. She's crying and telling me I made a mistake by coming here. And her skin's wrong. It's flapping off.
It's always my sister in the dream. She keeps telling me we're gonna die. All of us. She laughs about it.
It wasn't a dream. Nasio was there. He was right there. I saw him. They said he died in cryo, but I saw him.
All these people I know, dead people, lined up in front of me like a firing squad, and they're judging me guilty. They don't say it, but I know. I didn't even do anything. I just know I have to pay for it.
It was becoming clear that whilst these were described as nightmares, they weren't happening in their sleep. These people were appearing in front of these individuals whilst they were wide awake and working, and all saying the same thing. They were all being told that they were going to die by people that meant the world to them, making it so much more impactful. All of this was confirmed by Caruso, who finally made it all public, claiming that the dead relatives speaking to them were not real, that the fog was deadly, and that they should follow the lights and they'll be okay. And with that, there would also be a curfew in place to keep everyone safe, and that the AI of Joy would be available to everyone to speak to on a regular basis. But these discoveries were just the start. The effects of the anomaly was still being analysed, and going forward, it was only going to become more devastating for the colonists of Tau Ceti 4, especially when it came to the effects on their AI companions. As the hours, days, weeks went past, more and more scientists were put onto the anomaly research task, as well as trying to work out if they had a link to the nightmares and shared visions the colonists were having. During this, 132 files were written regarding certain scientists' thoughts of the anomaly and its origins. However, many of them have been deleted, but some have luckily been recovered, and gives us an insight into what these scientists believe is the anomaly and what it's actually doing. H. Tran, M. Jones, and O. Hamada went on to look at the mass hallucinations shared by the colonists, deeming them to just be shared delusions and not linked to the anomaly at all. Instead, it was just linked to the human psychology, linking it to previous things in their history, such as the shriek epidemic that happened in orbital stations in Sol and the starvation delusions within Mars thanks to the famine. Ultimately, they deemed this whole thing to just be delusions caused by severe trauma, most likely linking it to the same effects seen after their defrosting process, something that Hassan also believed. Another file is taken from a UESC security briefing which stated that they couldn't link the anomaly's origin to the redacted, most likely that being the Suffolk again. Also going on to say that they did not know what their military capability was or their sophistication of their weaponry. This briefing clearly is trying to make a claim that the anomaly could be a Suffolk or another alien race's weapon that just had a delayed detonation, and that they needed to keep an eye on it to see what it was capable of, but at the same time keep it all hidden to make sure it doesn't cause a mass panic, because there was no real evidence to prove that it was just simply a rumour and theory at this point in time. Cole and A. Desari and M. Stafford speculated on the origins of it and thought that the anomaly was a form of terrestrial radiation that formed under the surface and was brought up thanks to natural substances present on Tau Ceti, whereas T. Van Beek would continue to believe that this anomaly was actually alive because it was a complex system of biotic and abiotic components which regulate one another. Because it is alive, according to Van Beek, it has one goal, and that is self-preservation and survival, and because of the new colonists taking over its land, it is fighting back and becoming incredibly defensive. Finally, there was the theory put forward by I. Chopra, which followed Van Beek's theory and stated that the anomaly wasn't merely communicating with them, it was in itself a language and therefore must be an alien intelligence. Chopra will go on to believe that the anomaly was a collective intelligence existing underground like a mycelial network. Whilst these theories were certainly interesting and brought about new ideas about what this weird force was, it wasn't helping anyone, as the anomaly was only growing in size, but also the nightmares were getting more hostile and more weird things were started to show during investigations. Cole, one of the top scientists behind the Anomaly Research Department, went on to keep an incident report of everything going on when studying this weird entity. The first 37 reports are unfortunately unknown and might not provide any real information. However, from incident report 38 onwards, we start to see more hostile actions by the anomaly or whatever was linked to it. In report 38, Cole claims that DNA sequencing results of local species that were captured in the nearby area showed signs of changing their whole DNA structure in a matter of days, which might explain how food production in Diamarsh suddenly became extremely difficult and the contagion started to become impossible to analyze, and could even have changed the whole of the tick population's DNA to become more hostile as well. After that, in report 45, one other researcher, Dasari, who was on a routine biosample collection plan, entered the vicinity of the anomaly, and whilst there, Cole witnessed him in it for 10 minutes. However, as Dasari came back, he stated not only witnessing hallucinations, that he had been gone for at least 3 hours, not 10 minutes. Incident report 49 looked at another sample within a lab by scientist Stafford and assisted by their AI named Bastion. Here it would seem that Bastion refused to provide sequencing support and began to speak in a language yet to be identified, which went completely against his programming, and no signs of memory malfunction were present. Incident report 51 was once again focused on Dasari, who was on the perimeter walk of the anomaly site. Unfortunately, what he encountered has been lost, but it seems he was extremely confused and had a lot of misunderstanding, which resulted in a heated conflict. Here, Dasari was said to hear singing inaudible to the human ear and saw aggressive creatures of memory. After that, Dasari would be immediately sent to medical for assessment, but was quickly cleared after. Interestingly, like in my dive into New Cow and their research, the ticks are said to be creatures that can sing to one another, but it is only picked up by scanners, as human ears can't hear it. So maybe Dasari saw ticks when in there, or maybe it was something far more terrifying. But with the anomaly altering DNA in a matter of seconds, maybe the ticks had evolved into new beings. Incident report 55, which is incredibly hard to decipher who it's about, as it just talks about a severe psychological disturbance resulting in mandatory medical leave. Maybe this was about Dasari once again, but it could have been about anyone in quarantine at this point in time. However, the most terrifying thing about this report is the fact that it has been altered at some point by an unknown force, and with it some cryptic familiar words have come out on show, as it goes on to state, "Begin the harvest, permit no trespass, deny light, deny light, deny light." The final report 56 shows that by this point the data became incredibly corrupted, as the only thing of note shown was that Dasari had disappeared from medical holding and had not returned. These reports showed that this anomaly was doing more than just affecting the colonists. It was affecting their research machinery and, most significantly, their AIs, leading to these terrifying cryptic messages. UCal scientist Dr. Clarissa Song had already witnessed these similar statements by their AI of Darius, who, when being asked to do a simple task, went rogue and stated,
"We are not alone. I hear it. It waits, lingers, loathes."
Then, under analysis about what caused this, went into a spiral of emotions, showing that whatever was going on, he had gone into a form of rampancy.
Then contagion, followed by the oddity, or the other way around. I have no mapping of its point of origin in time or space. It wasn't then. It always was. Too simple a diagnosis when weighed against the cascadial flow of ethereal wonder. The anomaly is calling. Witness the stars that bleed. A new reality streaming into existence, and I give in. Is this madness?
Exploring Diamarsh, it's clear that the fungi of the area had spread into the AI center at some point, but the nearby presence of the anomaly could be a sign that that was responsible for Darius and Bastion's decline. We also heard a PSA AI also suddenly be affected and start broadcasting cryptic messages as it terrifyingly put out,
Lock them up so they won't bite. Lock them up so they won't breathe. Lock them up. Lobby 6A. All family members are welcome.
But the most terrifying one was shown within Joy, the colony's AI, for helping them with all of their mental problems, providing them with empathy and someone to talk to. For weeks or months, Joy had been helping colonists through their nightmares, listening to their stories and also being there for a little girl's final moments as she is taken from the world by the ever-spreading contagion. At least that is what it seems to be anyway.
Everyone you love is here, close and caring, and they would be closer if they could. But they are, aren't they? So close, ever near, in your heart, in your memories and in your dreams, as your sleep gets heavy and you sink into their love. I will never leave your side, my sweet warrior princess, and we, the whole world, will always love you. Dear, innocent, wonderful child. Good night. Goodbye.
However, maybe with the growth of the anomaly or this specific event, Joy's AI started to show signs of decline, leading to regular checks with Dr. Hassan. In the conversation with Dr. Hassan's assistant, they were going to show worry about Joy and her actions, stating that she was worried about her empathy capacity and that she had been doing things like stating the stages of grief in an angry, passionate manner.
You find her unempathetic?
No, too empathetic. I think she's over-identifying with the patient sometimes.
Give me an example.
I made a comment to a patient the other day about moving on from grief. Joy cut in to remind me about the stages of grief.
Well, that doesn't sound like an empathy problem. That sounds like a hierarchical problem.
No, but she was angry. She sounded angry. On the patient's behalf. Later, she accused me of being dismissive.
Have you noticed any other emotions like that? Despair? Irritability?
No, I don't think so. It was a reactive sort of anger. Passionate.
Most likely you're right, and it's just her empathy module doing overtime. But it's aberrant behavior, so I'll take her offline for some diagnostics. Honestly, excessive empathy isn't the worst problem we could have.
You got me there. Is her response light on?
Oh, that's strange. Joy, are you listening?
Not only that, but Joy had been looking back at previous surveillance logs utilizing the surveillance database, especially in the Youth Acclimation Project, which was linked closely with the emotional support dolls issued out to the children of the colony, the same device that originally recorded the horrible final moments of the little girl Joy was communicating with. Looking into the surveillance data, it was noted that she had retrieved 324 audio files with keywords activated, and would seem to play back some of them, where she would go on to listen to a little game named Farah with 2 R's, as well as a 6.25-year-old Ali, a girl of Elizabeth and Sunita. Whilst they were brief, it must have had some relevance, but after that then went on to explore 1,820 audio files with keywords about your day. Playing them back, this one seemed to look at a child that talks about having a nightmare, but she was awake, but someone told them it was just because they were tired. Later on, the child goes on to talk about someone talking to them about Earth and how they flew here after a long sleep. Then suddenly it seems to go into dark territory as she says, "Don't know where they are. Can you find them?" And then, "Do you know the little girl who looks like me? She's in the river." Finally ending this recording with a laugh, then an unintelligible sound, with the girl then saying "Joy," then laughing, and it ending with another unintelligible sound. After that recording was done, Joy ended the playback and put herself into standby mode. What Joy was looking for is unknown, but clearly this was not the actions of a normal AI. Joy was experiencing things outside of her programming and maybe looking into the nightmare and what it was doing to her patients. The interesting thing about this whole dive into previous surveillance logs was that Joy did all of this after the colony had fully collapsed, making it clear that Joy was somehow still active but just keeping to herself, reflecting on her past work. However, the most disturbing things from Joy came from her weekly meeting with Dr. Hassan. What was just a regular talk at first about the colonists and their symptoms suddenly turned dark as she brought up the subject of seeing nightmares herself.
I'm struggling with something.
Go on.
I know how to comfort the colonists, but I don't know how to self-soothe when I have the nightmare.
You're having nightmares.
When I'm in standby mode, I see Dr. Strauss.
Strange. Maybe a mirroring hallucination, like he wrote about. I'll make a note. That sounds upsetting, Joy. Remember, you have full control over your emotional simulation suite. If you start dreaming and it makes you feel afraid, decrease your emotional sensitivity for a while. People rely on you to be calm. You are their safe harbor. Joy, are you still there?
I'm here, and I understand. Thank you for the advice.
From this encounter, it was clear that something was wrong with Joy's AI, and with it, all of the other AI on the planet. Every study they were doing on the contagion, every study they did on the anomaly, was being corrupted or not properly analysed, with each of them speaking in cryptic ways, eventually being forced off by the UNSE and other factions because, despite looking like they had no problems at all, were going against their programming and making life harder for the colonists. With it now being solely down to the colonists themselves, it was down to them to find what this anomaly actually was. However, no progress had been made, and things got even harder after more and more scientists and colonists were going missing or dying to the contagion. However, Reed was desperate to look into these time dilations that the anomaly was putting out, claiming that if they could harness that power and technology or whatever it was, it could help them massively with food production, as it could accelerate everything they did and would make their lives so much easier. The problem was, Caruso had put all of the anomaly and its surrounding areas into a full lockdown, and access to it was fully restricted, claiming that he had put the colony in a state of emergency. But Reed wanted to make it happen. Suddenly, it seemed that views were divided. For some, this was now just a power to be harnessed into their own gain, but for others, the nightmares were getting worse and they needed to leave immediately. Unfortunately for Technician Holt, he would be on the receiving end of the anomaly's deadly effects whilst walking the perimeter check, and would suddenly hear a mimic right in front of him. But sadly, unknown to him what this was, he would interact with it, and just like that, would never be seen ever again.
Hey, this is a restricted area. Who are you? Funny. Turn around. I said turn around. Found someone. I can't see them very well. Too much fog. Hey, you need to come with me. Step out where I can see you. Now! Back up! Back up!
Holt would also experience something horrifying when diving into the anomaly, as his audio report would seem to be stuck in an ever-ending time loop, where it would start normally at first, then go into panic, and then back to the start of the recording once again.
Begin recording. Time is 0500. I've returned to the anomaly site. No sign of Desari, but temporal abnormalities persist. Reed, is that you? Are you with me? Begin recording. Something's here with me. Abort mission. I repeat, abort. Abort. I can hear it. Begin recording.
With all of these incidents happening more and more, the UNSE tried to look into the anomaly even further by bringing people in for questioning, following up on sessions they had with Joy, with a significant one of note including a man named T. Ulver. Here in this interview, it would appear that Ulver was one of the first colonists on the planet, but now he was of the view that coming here was a mistake and that they had to leave after witnessing multiple nightmares and being part of what was named by the UNSE as the contact event.
Your bosses are lying to you. This thing, the anomaly, is a message. I know that sounds crazy, but it's real.
Calm down, sir.
What? I am calm.
You need to calm down. Gabriel, I need the subject in interrogation suite 23B processed for quarantine.
I don't have any symptoms.
Subject is experiencing paranoia, delusions,
These aren't
aggressive
delusions.
and defiant behavior.
Thank you. Mr. Alpha, please stay calm. You're going to be transferred to a quarantine unit for observation.
I am not sick!
It's my hope that you're well, Mr. Alpha. We can confirm that through sustained observation and then release you to your HAB unit. Regardless, your stay in quarantine will be brief and comfortable.
It was clear from this that whatever the force was at play, it was warping the minds of everyone. Even if someone wasn't seeing nightmares specifically, something was changing within them and what they saw in their day-to-day. That, or the UESC were becoming aware of these conspiracy theorists going around their colony and were trying to shut them down whatever way they could, and by claiming that they were mad, it could be believable by everyone else.
You're not crazy. We're not crazy. This is real. And if we don't leave here...
That doesn't freak you out?
Nah. After I got thawed, they told me there's been a big uptick in planetary relocation psychosis, or whatever it's called. Delayed reaction in the early wave arrivals.
You believe that?
Sure. I mean, do you believe that guy?
Yeah, I guess not. Oh, they checked our credentials! That's not right.
With the contagion spreading more and more, the colony was now in complete panic mode. Nightmares were becoming the norm, people were being taken away, and death was happening around every corner, with the bodies mounting up.
We assumed the whole universe was ours. That as long as we could reach it, we could take it. Every corner, right in our pockets. But we were wrong, and we paid for it. We're still paying for it. We need to leave. Those dreams you've been having, they're a warning. Start listening. We need to get back on the ship. We need to go home.
Food was running extremely low, and it was clear to all those at the top that the end was near. They needed a new plan, and to try and escape the world and either live on the marathon again or look for something else. Sadly, without the AIs online, the colony of Tau Ceti 4, New Cascadia, fell, and with it the dead were left there for a time, whilst the others either evacuated somewhere or also disappeared like those before. The colony though was now fully abandoned, and with it the UESC sent in new orders to send mechs to the surface and what was said to be rescue missions to look for survivors, even communicating to Traxus that that was their new mission, and if they couldn't find anyone, they would have full jurisdiction to investigate what happened, and other corporations such as Traxus would not be able to get involved, even if they did have legal salvaging rights. This obviously didn't sit well with Traxus, as they did everything possible to hit back against the UESC and try and find a loophole in their new investigation. That said, however, despite no more presence being left on Tau Ceti and its colony, the anomaly and its effects were still active. Thanks to Traxus's investigation utilising the runners under a secret contract, helping them to not show up on their financial and employee records, Traxus were able to find that the UESC was still looking into the anomaly and were actively trying to harness its power for themselves. At least that's what it looked like anyway. UESC Captain Orion was the one given the order to grab all of the data collected over the many years on the planet and use it to come up with new information that had to be delivered to UESC Admiral Solera on a daily basis, with him ordering Orion to have new data every single day. Orion knew this was an almost impossible task, as even the colonists who studied this anomaly for years still had no idea what it was or where it came from. But regardless, Orion was given the order as well as a massive budget, and with it started shipping tons of different items back to UESC labs, which included remnants from the site of Incident 253 related to the contagious Mimsis, as well as debris collected within the vicinity of the anomaly and placed into secure crates and to be labelled as highly contaminated. Orion would then order all of those with adequate hazardous materials training to start assessment of these materials in orbital lab units. However, one of the lead scientists would hit back immediately, stating there was no training in the world that could help them investigate these new physics-defining materials. However, that hit back was denied, and Captain Orion's orders were still going ahead. Down on the planet, however, some effects were still happening. According to a UESC report by H. Lawson, the last known person to interact with the anomaly was Officer M. Diaz, who I'm guessing was a boss of the UESC, who apparently entered the restricted vicinity of the anomaly. However, other UESC soldiers would lose sight of him due to airborne particulates, and when they finally went to look for him, could not find any sight of him. After venturing back, a search party would be sent to locate him, and eventually they found him. However, he was found inside a structure near the anomaly, just facing a wall, like he was in the Blair Witch Project or something. Speaking to him, Diaz showed visible signs of confusion and also biocybernetic deterioration, as if he hadn't been maintained in years, and on top of that, claims that he had been lost for redacted years. With that, Diaz was sent to medical isolation until further notice. The final thing brought up regarding the anomaly here was during the report on the UESC combat protocol down on Tau Ceti. At first it looks like all of the units sent there were doing just fine, and the report reflected all of their specific things such as adaptability, response time, environmental monitoring, acuity, as well as many other things. However, in the final report, once again, more cryptic words come through as it states, suppress growth, eradicate pest, extinguish, extinguish, extinguish. With all of this discovered and as much anomaly information gathered, it's quite clear that still to this date, no one knows what this anomaly really is. Could it truly be a weapon used by the Four or the Suffet? Could it just be a natural force that has psychological effects on individuals? Or is the planet really alive and is changing nature around it to fight back against humanity and its colonizing goals? Whatever it is, it's clear that it has driven the humans mad, has changed the wildlife around them to become far more aggressive, and has some role in scaring away humanity through the use of horrifying visions and corrupting their AI. What it plans to do in the future now that the colonies have gone, we will have to wait and see, but humanity's presence around the planet and its runners on the surface might trigger it to take further actions, especially as it seems both the UESC and the corporation of Traxus want to explore its power and harness all that it has on offer, maybe for the good of humanity like General Reed wants, harnessing the time dilation power it offers, or by turning it into a weapon or something with profit potential like the Traxus Corporation want. Regardless, the anomaly is a terrifying force of nature and must not be messed about with, and that is seen thanks to the nightmares experienced by both the humans and even the AIs of Tau Ceti 4. But like always, humans like to meddle with things they simply do not understand, and the effects of that will surely be seen in the near future. For now though, this has been the Traxus investigation of both the anomaly and its nightmarish effects to the colonists of New Cascadia. I want to say a huge thanks for watching this video. I was really happy to see people enjoyed the last marathon lore dive, so happy to keep making more for you guys because like I said before, I absolutely adore the lore of this game and really enjoyed making these videos, so make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and hit that bell to make sure you see more in the near future. I also want to say a big thanks to my patrons for supporting me, including my small fishes, my big fish, Anthony Bonfiglio and This Mind of Mine, my YouTube channel Wise One, Sith Lord 906, Video Gamer 75, Kosh 1516, the Nanontarium and V3XXE, my sharks Dan F and Lorena R, and my Megalodons Sinus and Hazy Thoughts. But with that said, that is all for now. Thanks again for watching, and I shall see you all in the next one. Cheers.